Hey there, YouTube and Wooper Club fans. It's me, Fruit Taco, bringing you another feature match from Wooper Club League Season 14. This week we have a bit of a thematic rivalry with the Corviknight Clobberers going up against the Calgary Corviknight. The Clobberers were featured on the feature match earlier this season where they took a loss. Will they finally be able to get a win in one of these videos and actually clobber the Corviknights? Let's dive into it. The Clobberers have Roaring Moon, Thunderous Incarnate, Arcanine, Bramblegast, Regidrago, Florges, Sinistra, Scizor, Berserker, Gastrodon, and Garganacl going up against the Corviknight, who have Ogerpon Hearthflame, Hisuian Lilligant, Sandy Shocks, Galarian Articuno, Moltres, Duraludon, Slitherwing, Klefki, Brute Bond, Toxapex, and Torkoal. Taking a first look at the matchup, well, the Clobberers have the two fastest Mons, which is nice, but the Corviknight have Chlorophyll and Trick Room, as well as some other kind of speed boosty options. And interestingly, both teams have access to Prankster Thunderwave. Usually that would be a pretty big advantage for one of them, but they both have it, although the Roaring Moon being a dark type and being immune to that Prankster Thunderwave is pretty nice for the Clobberers. Looking at the rest of the matchup for the Clobberers, well, the Corviknight only have one Ghost Resist, netting one weakness, and only one Dragon Resist, netting one resist. Overall, also being weak to Fire, Flying, and Ice. I think Roaring Moon and Regidrago seem like great offensive options. Thunderous's Prankster is nice, but Electric is just okay here, so if it comes, it would definitely be leaning more into coverage and support. And then, Stealth Rocks could be pretty useful against the Corviknight as well, but I do think that the bulk of the Clobberer strategy is just going to come from strong dragon attacks, since the Klefki is the only thing that naturally resists them. For the Corviknight, well, the Clobberers only have two Dark Resists, netting neutral, two Ghost Resists, again netting neutral weaknesses, two Rock Resists, but five Ice weaknesses, netting two Ice weaknesses. I think Klefki definitely has to come for the Dragon types as well as the Prankster support. They could consider leaving the Sun at home to not boost Roaring Moon even further, but I think Chlorophyll Litigant is another way to combat the fast Mons on the other side. And then I definitely expect to see something coming with Terra Ice, something like Lilligant getting Terra Ice boosted Triple Axle, or Sandy Shocks with a Terra Ice Terra Blast would be very, very dangerous attackers, especially in the Sun with potential speed boosts to both. And then the two Ice Resists on the Clobberers side being weak to ground just makes it even nicer on the Sandy Shocks. Overall, I think this is actually a pretty even matchup. I think it'll come down to which coach brings the better support and is able to create an opening to get ahead of their opponent. I might give the slight edge to the Corviknight because I think they have more options they could pursue between stuff like Chlorophyll, Trick Room, Priority Stall, and other things, but I do think that this is either team's game to win. And here we have the team that the Clobberers will be bringing to the match. We definitely see that double dragon offense I had been talking about, and let's start it off with that Roaring Moon. Max attack Jolly Nature with enough speed to outspeed all of the Corviknight's roster. Booster Energy will be boosting that attack. And then we've got Terraflying boosted Acrobatics, Stab, Knockoff, and Earthquake for coverage, while Tailwind will offer some support mostly for that Regidrago, I think. This set looks pretty good. Acrobatics with the booster energy could be awkward if Torkoal comes, because the booster energy won't pop if you send yourself out into Sun and the photosynthesis is already activated, so you won't get the boosted power on acrobatics there. Knockoff is good stab. It trades having more resists for the utility of knockoff being knockoff. Earthquake is nice coverage, hitting 5 Mons super effectively, but I do think Stomping Tantrum would be better to avoid hitting your teammates. Then Tailwind is an interesting choice. Dragon Dance is, of course, an option, but you need two of them to outspeed Chlorophyll Lilligant. Tailwind will then also help Mons like that Regidrago I mentioned. And lastly, no Protect means that if you don't Terra, you're going to be at the mercy of Slitherwing's first impressions, which is something you definitely need to watch out for. All in all, a nice set, but it has the chance to find itself in some awkward positions. Next up, we have Garganacl, max HP and special defense with Calm Nature and Lefties, making it a big wall. Terrafire will resist Grass and loses the fighting weakness. Salt Cure, Recover, Stealth Rock, and Helping Hand make a very supportive set here. I like this set. Rocks and Salt Cure can pressure a lot of the opposing team with Helping Hand helping the attackers. Not much to say other than this looks pretty great, but it doesn't do a whole lot without the rest of the team putting out big damage next to it. Regidrago is then up next. Max special attack modest with 236 EVs in speed. The speed is a little awkward and doesn't seem to outspeed many offensive pieces, but in Tailwind it outspeeds even +1 Lilligant, so that could be what they were targeting with that speed investment. Choice specs Terra Dragon boosted Dragon Energy and Draco Meteor, definitely tearing chunks in the other team. Then you have Earth Power to coverage to hit the Klefki, and, well, Explosion as a filler move. This is definitely a scary mon. Specs dragon moves into only a single dragon resist could be devastating, and if this isn't Tailwind, it could be a huge problem for the Corviknight. Drago doesn't have a great speed tier though, slower than things like Slitherwing and Duraludon, so outside of Tailwind, it's pretty vulnerable. I respect the Dragon spam though, and in fact, I might have gone for Dragon Pulse over Explosion as just a reliable Dragon move to lock yourself into late game if you've taken some damage from attacks, so you don't want to use the weakened Dragon energy, and you don't want to lock yourself into lowering your special attack with Draco Meteor. All in all, I like this, but it'll definitely need to find the right opportunity to come in and take big KOs. Next up is Arcanine, max HP and special defense, careful nature, with Intimidate and an Iapapa Berry to make another all-around wall. Terrifier boosted Flare Blitz is the only attack with Will-O-Wisp for support, and then Morning Sun could potentially heal it even more in Sun and Protect. I'm not so sold on this set. Will-O-Wisp is normally great, but looking at the physical mons on the other side, Ogerpon can't be burned, and Lilligant, Slitherwing, and Brute Bonnet are already weak to Flare Blitz. Sure, Terras can change that, and passive damage is nice, but I think I really would have liked to see extreme speed, maybe even with Terra Normal, to beat opposing priority or speed-boosting mons. Then we have Thundurus, max HP with enough speed to outspeed a Lilligant and Adamant Ogerpon with a hasty nature, lowering defense to keep the physical attack. Mental Herb will keep Prankster safe from a single taunt. Taunt and Thunderwave will make use of Prankster, and then Terra Electric, Wild Bolt Storm, and Brick Break coverage to break the screens. I generally like this set, but I think there's some room for improvement. The EV investment is the first thing to look at. Yes, you outspeed most of the opposing team, but the 3 fastest mons on that side all resist or are immune to electric attacks, so you're hitting them with a not particularly strong Brick Break or a Thunderwave. I think you could drop more speed and put it in bulk or an attacking stat, or you could look at a more offensive set. Sludge Bomb hits the 3 grass types, Weather Ball in some becomes another good attack into the electric resists, and Knockoff is just a generally more useful utility attack. All of the moves he's bringing are solid and make sense, but I think there's just more potential to be brought out here in either the stats or move choices, but it's still a fine set though. And then lastly, we have Sinistra, max HP and special defense with a Calm Nature, again investing in the special bulk on this team with a Citrus Berry. Terra Fairy will resist potential dragon attacks as well as bug, fighting, and dark options. Rage Powder provides support along with Strength Sap and Memento. Matcha Gotcha is then the only offensive move on the set here. I think this team loves having the redirection, but I do think there are some weaknesses to this set. I think this might be focused on countering the Slitherwing, so the Terra isn't great, but works really well for that specific purpose, resisting both of those stab options. The big problem is this can't do anything to the opposing 3 grass types. Grass types are immune to Rage Powder, and with only a grass type attack, it's not doing a whole lot when the other grass types are around. They're all physical, so I guess you can spam Strength Sap, but Shadow Ball would be really nice here, probably over Memento, which can be a nice surprise option, but with your slow speed, doesn't have a great chance of going off except in Tailwind. I definitely would have gone for the more reliable option in that slot. Overall, I do like this team, though. It really is leaning into the offensive dragons, so it'll need to deal with Klefki effectively, but if it can, it looks quite good. If they can manage the other side's priority options, I definitely think they have a good chance at out-pressuring them with this very offensive team. So now let's take a look at what the Corviknight will be bringing, starting it off with that Sun and the Torkoal, max HP special attack with a speed-lowering nature. Heat Rock will be extending that Drought. Terrifier boosted Eruption Stab with Earth Power and Body Press coverage, and then Rapid Spin to clear hazards. This is a Trick Room attacker, which is interesting. Body Press and Earth Power to hit 3 of the 5 fire resists. No boots and only Eruption as stab could be awkward, though, with nothing like Overheat or Heat Wave as a backup option if you take damage. That's about my only criticism here, though. I'd probably put another fire move over maybe Earth Power, but still a great set. Then we have Klefki, max HP and defense Klefki with a mental herb to protect against taunt. We see both Prankster users bringing the mental herbs expecting taunt. Terraflying can avoid ground type attacks, Trick Room, Reflect, and Thunderwave Prankster options, with then Play Rough to smack the dragon types, as it's the only fairy move it gets that one-shots Roaring Moon. This is a solid support set here. Reflect and Light Screen are both useful against his opponent, so I wonder how he settled on Reflect, but it's a solid set and a solid choice. Maybe Terra Fairy to lose the weaknesses but still be immune to Dragon, but still good. We then have Slitherwing, max HP and attack with a speed-lowering nature for Trick Room and underspeeding no-speed Scizor. Terra Fairy provides an additional Dragon immunity. We've got First Impression and Close Combat stabs with Acrobatics getting boosted after the Focus Sash is used and then Protect for safety. This is an interesting set. Rather than going max speed to outspeed something like Regidrago, min speed means it can be pretty awkward out of Trick Room. The thing I really don't like is Acrobatics, though. You aren't guaranteed to trigger the Focus Sash, and Acrobatics just isn't a good move unless you do. Dual Wing Beat, Flare Blitz, Temper Flare, there are lots of better options to cover Bramblegast and Sinistra, which are the only 2 flying weaknesses. So I really think that Acrobatics is suboptimal here, but in general, in solid set if it does make use of that Trick Room. We then have Hisuian Lilligant, max HP and attack Adamant Nature with Chlorophyll covering that lack of speed investment. In Sun, it'll outspeed everything except a +1 speed Roaring Moon and a +1 speed Timid Thunderous. Terrifier will let it resist fire and fairy attacks. Close Combat Stab and Wide Lens boosting the accuracy of Triple Axle and Sleep Powder with Protect as the last move. There were a lot of options for Lilligant in this match. No After You for Torkoal Eruptions out of Trick Room. Between the Ice and Fighting moves, it hits 7 mons super effectively, so that's great coverage. The Investment and Terra are where I'm more interested, though. 128 speed EVs would have let it outspeed +1 Roaring Moon with Chlorophyll, and just 28 outspeed +1 Adamant Moon. 52 would outspeed Regidrago out of Sun, and 152 would outspeed Timid Drago. I don't know if they were trying to live a particular hit, but it really feels like they could get a lot of value out of even just a little speed investment. The Terra 2, the resistances are nice, but something like Terra Dark or Electric to be immune to Prankster, Thunderwaves, or an offensive Terra might be a little more useful, and the safety of Wide Lens is nice, but Clear Amulet or Expert Belt could be nice to keep up the offense. I think this is really just a difference of opinion and kind of philosophy when it comes to building Lilligant for this match. The Corviknight coach definitely is looking with the lack of speed investment to be more focusing on that Trick Room, maybe underspeeding some things that I think I personally would prefer outspeeding outside of Trick Room. So it's interesting, and we'll see how it all works out for them. Then we have Sandy Shocks, a max special attack with enough speed and timid nature to outspeed max speed Arcanine, although it's just 12 EVs short of outspeeding Modest Thunderous. Choice specs and the Photosynthesis boost the power of Volt Switch, Earth Power, Power Gem, and Terra Ice, Terra Blast. This is a great set, aside from maybe those extra 12 speed EVs that I probably would have put into it. This has coverage for just about everything, and with specs and Photosynthesis special attack boost, it's gonna hit like a truck. The Photosynthesis choice is interesting, though. Even if you EV to get a speed boost instead, you still have decent rolls to OHKO even max HP Roaring Moon and Regidrago, as well as specially defensive Sinistra. Of course, the special attack boost will let you hit harder with the neutral moves that you can lock yourself into, so I definitely understand the value of it. And last up is Ogerpon. Max HP and speed with an adamant nature lets it outspeed max speed Arcanine. Swords Dance and the attack boost from Terra will power up Ivy, Cudgel, Horn Leech, and Play Rough. This is a great set and really threatening if the Sun gets it to lets it throw off +3 Sun boosted, Terra boosted Ivy Cudgels, which is a favorable roll to Oko, Roaring Moon, and Sun with just the Terra, no Sword Stance needed. I think there's an argument to be made for running Jolly and keeping the Roaring Moon and Thunderous, which naturally outspeed you Honest, or for running Trailblaze over Hornleech, but I think this is a great set overall, and if this gets set up in the Sun, it's going to be absolutely devastating. This is an interesting take on the Sun team that we see from the Corviknight. This team is definitely going to live and die by its use of Trick Room. The bulk over speed on Lilligant and Slitherwing could pay off in Trick Room, but Lilligant has the Chlorophyll boost in Sun, and still might not be the fastest on the field with it. I don't know, this team could be very successful or trip over its own feet, so we'll just have to see how it does in the match. Here we have both teams facing off at Team Preview. For the Clobberers, well, Klefki is the only thing getting in the way of Regidrago destroying everything in Tailwind, with Draco Meteor and even Spread Dragon Energy OHKOing everything that isn't Klefki or a Terrid Slitherwing. Even Arcanine, I think, could be pretty good here with only one Fire Resist on the other side. For the Corviknight, though, Lilligant hits everything besides Arcanine super effectively, and Sandy Shocks actually has super effective moves for every Mon. Definitely the best Terra option here for the Corviknight, I think. We'll see the leads are Arcanine and Thunderous going up against Slitherwing and Klefki. I think this is a pretty good situation for the Clobberers. They've got that Intimidate off on the Slitherwing. They have the Taunt for the Klefki. They have Flare Blitz super effective into both slots and could punish a Klefki with a Mental Herb staying in. So I think it looks pretty good for them this first turn. We'll see how it plays out. Protect from the Slitherwing as Taunt goes onto the Klefki, but the Mental Herb does mean that the Reflect will still go up as Flare Blitz goes into the protected Slitherwing slot. Unfortunate there, it would have done about half to the Klefki through the Reflect, so definitely unfortunate that they targeted that slot instead of the Klefki. We see the Torkoal switch out into, or the Torkoal switch in for Slitherwing as Brick Break comes out, breaking the screen instead of taunting. Flare Blitz into the Torkoal does about a quarter, but the Trick Room does go up, and that was an interesting play from the Corviknight. You lost your Mental Herb and could be taunted again, but you switched in Torkoal and went for Trick Room, which risked being KO'd by an offensive Arcanine set, and you'd lose your only Dragon Resist there. It was a risky play that paid off. I think maybe they were predicting the Clobberers to expect the Klefki to switch out, which is why they kind of stayed in and maybe tried to get a kind of pseudo-free Trick Room that way. Now we're going to see the Taunt stick and Eruption doing solid damage to both opponents, along with Play Rough dropping Thunderous to a quarter before that Klefki finally does go down to a Flare Blitz. But that will mean that Slitherwing comes in, gets that Photosynthesis attack buff, and still has its Focus Sash intact. This is definitely looking pretty scary Trick Room attackers against the going into the Clobberers here. An actually amazing play, trying to paralyze their own Arcanine. Eruption will take down the Thunderous, and Close Combat will take down the Arcanine. And then we have 2 turns of Trick Room left as the Garganacl and Sinistra come out. That was a really cool play by the Clobberers. They side-targeted that Thunder Wave, because if it had hit, Arcanine would have actually gone before Slitherwing in this Trick Room and gotten off a huge Flare Blitz that we know the Focus Sash would have saved it, but you would have just taken out your opponent's Dragon Resist and brought their Terra Fairy option down to 1 HP. Would have looked really nice for Regidrago in the back there. Fortunately, though, they do get that 10% miss, which is really brutal. The one time you want your Thunder Waves, you want to get Thunder Wave is the time you don't. Terra from the Sinistra means it'll live the Eruption here. The Garganacl goes for Salt Cure on the Torkoal, getting off a little bit of damage, and then Close Combat will take out the Garganacl before the Strength Sap comes out, weakening the attack of the Slitherwing and healing up Sinistra as Roaring Moon hits the field, gets the Photosynthesis attack boost, but does not spend the booster energy, meaning Acrobatics is no more powerful than usual. And man, that Thunder Wave miss really was unfortunate going into this turn. Imagine if Slitherwing was at 1 HP, you could go for Stealth Rocks with Garganacl there to make sure it doesn't get the ability to use First Impression again, and then you'll go for the win with Regidrago and Tailwind. Instead, they have to Salt Cure, doing decent damage to Torkoal, but I think targeting Slitherwing might have been more important because First Impression pressures both Roaring Moon and Regidrago. But man, if that Thunder Wave had been there, I think they would have had a much easier turn, and they just kind of had to go for what value they could this turn. Turn 6, we see Lilligant switch in for that Torkoal as Rage Powder will save the Roaring Moon from a close combat. And then we get the Tailwind set up as the Trick Room goes away, and we do see the Heat Rock, meaning we've got 3 turns of Sun and Tailwind left. 1 Protect on the Lilligant and another on the Slitherwing will save the Corviknights from an Acrobatics. Nothing for the Rage Powder to draw. Now the Acrobatics will take out the Lilligant easily, 4 times effective for sure, and then Close Combat again drawn into that Fairies-type Sinistra, doing big work. And now Sandy Shocks is out for the Corviknight. Protect on the Slitherwing as Sandy Shocks will Terra. Earthquake trying to hit the super effective damage, but the Terra means it's just normal effective. Machagacha will go into Protect and miss the Sandy Shocks. Very unfortunate, who easily OHKOs the Roaring Moon, as the last 2 Pokemon are out for the Clobberers with the Tailwind and Sun gone. That was a really tricky turn for the Clobberers. Both Sandy Shocks and Slitherwing are great Terra candidates for their offensive and defensive properties, respectively. A Terra Sandy Shocks only had a chance to go down to Knock Off plus Machagacha, but you'd probably want a Rage Powder to draw a potential close combat again. But if Slitherwing Terras, then Earthquake plus Machagacha would kill both opponents. Lots of things to think about, and it all comes down to predicting the Terra. What they did was the correct play if Slitherwing was the Terra, but if Shocks Terras, I think Knock Off plus Rage Powder has to be the best choice. Sinistra would go down to 2 attacks, but it would give you a safe switch to Regidrago and a free Tailwind next turn. We know that the pesky Focus Sash on Slitherwing, which still hasn't been broken, would probably still secure the game for the Corviknight, but with no Sash, you'd have a pretty solid chance at winning. Max HP Slitherwing has a 19% chance to lift Dragon Energy, definitely favored to get KO'd there, so couldn't target the get the super effective attack off into the Roaring Moon. And, you know, this is just, again, where that Thunder Wave miss is creeping up, because Slitherwing pressures both Regidrago and Roaring Moon, so I think you feel the need to get damage off on that Slitherwing, which is why you go for that double spread move. But the Corviknight Terrad Sandy Shocks, which is definitely paying off big for a time for them here. Slitherwing switches out to get the boost back on Sandy Shocks, as well as preserving that Sash and First Impression. Rage Powder means that the Sinistra will go down, and the Dragon Energy will pick up a double KO, leaving Regidrago as the only thing standing as the Slitherwing and Ogerpon come out. And we will see that the big First Impression damage and the outspeeding Play Rough will secure the game for the Calgary Corviknights over the Corviknight Clobberers. And congrats to the Corviknight for another win, but I do have to hand it to the Clobberers for that side target Thunder Wave being one of the coolest plays this season, even if it didn't work out for them. Something I didn't appreciate when I looked at the matchup was just how well Slitherwing and Torkoal worked together in this match. Slitherwing threatens to KO Roaring Moon and Garganacl, while Regidrago wants to preserve its HP for Dragon Energy, and close combat could still do big damage to Arcanine, really pressuring those fire resists alongside of that Torkoal in the Trick Room. I thought the Corviknight were in trouble without Klefki, but it was the Clobberers who just couldn't stand up to that pair of Trick Room attackers and couldn't weather the storm until the end of the game. An excellent game, though, and again, congrats to the Corviknight, and well played by the Clobberers. And thanks to you all for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, all that stuff. And, you know, well, I'll see you on the next one as we start reaching the end of the regular season here for Wooper Club Season 14. See you in the next one.